Thank you. Welcome to episode 1 of Ruff Stuff. I'm Dave, and this is Andrew, or Blizz.
Blizzard. I only get called Andrew when I'm in trouble, but with my mum or the police.
Well, we can't guarantee
So
either
we'll-
them
we'll-
won't turn up.
We'll stick to Blizz.
So Blizz is here, and what we're doing is episode 1 of this show. What we're trying to feature is the local musical talents, local sporting or particularly football identities and mini celebrities down here, as well as local heroes. And our first guest is all three of those in many ways. And I'll let you introduce him, Blizz. And then we'll have two local footballers, Mr. Luke Vassallo, inaugural coach of the Sharks, and also an Essendon footballer, and Graham Osborne from the Fitzroy Reserves. And we've got some highlights of the 1989 last Fitzroy Premiership, the Fitzroy versus Geelong Premiership, but we'll talk about that when Graham comes on.
Yes, so welcome to a good old comrade of mine, Alan Rowsell. Yeah, we go back a long way, don't we, Rouser?
Certainly do.
Back to, well, it's a long story, but yeah, I met Rouser in the kind of mid to late 80s. I was living with a friend of mine, Mark Phipps, who's a very good surfer and surfboard shaper, and Rouser's been in the surfboard industry in Torquay since the dawn of time, I would say.
Yes.
What sort of year, how many years are we talking?
From about 1970.
Okay, so what year is it? So we're talking 55 years in the surfboard industry. And a great left-handed musician, songwriter, and yeah, he's a colourful character that's lived down here for a long, long time. So we're very blessed to have Rouser here today.
Very grateful. Just on 55 years in the surf industry. Now, you're talking about Phipsy. How many years did it take for you to finally get to the mark where you can beat him in a local competition?
Oh, I'm very glad we're talking about this first episode. 43 years. 43 years.
43 years. And
Number 4 in the world amateur.
Gastro the night before, didn't he?
No.
Hey.
That was at his beloved.
You were under
It was
the
a
weather
right-hand beach break at Point Lonsdale. Legitimate waves, legitimately beaten.
And what happened to your title the next year?
Oh, it doesn't.
Did you turn late up for the entrance and they didn't let you in?
That's irrelevant. I
All right.
retired.
Let's hand over to Alan. So, Alan, if you just introduce your first tune, and we'll hear a couple of tunes from you, and then maybe come up and play one with you at the end.
Okay. This one's called The Tide. Speaks for itself, really. It's called The Tide Waits for No One. Blooming behind a cloud, I'm hurting inside and I'm crying out loud. Not running away from you. I love you like a river loves the sea. You take my breath away. My knees tremble when we kiss. A darkened lighthouse in a darkened room. But I wanna fly you to the moon. 'Cause the tide waits for no one. tide waits for no one. The earth, the moon, and the sun. You smell like a forest. But oh, my love's a fallen tree. I won't waste any time trying to run away. 'Cause I love you like a river loves the sea. But the tide waits for no one, and I'm down on bended knee. The tide waits for no one. See the river run. Thank you.
Beautiful sentiments there. Time and tide waits for no man.
Fipsy actually gave me that line, the tide waits for no one.
Yeah, well, that would possibly...
That was when he was waiting for too long for your ways.
Beautiful sentiments there. Time and tide waits for no man.
Fipsy actually gave me that line, the tide waits for no one.
Yeah, well, that would possibly...
That was when he was waiting for too long for your ways. No.
No, he was running away on a beautiful sunny day when I had to stay at work making his bloody surfboards, and I said, "Where do you think you're going?" And he goes, "The tide waits for no one, Alan." So you get creds on that one, Mark. You'll probably be after the invoice.
Wow, that's enough. That's enough about...
Get about 250 cents.
Yep, well done. Yes, and an old friend of ours, that was one of his famous lines too, was like, "Time and tide waits for no man." He often said that.
And it doesn't.
That's a good sentiment. So let's talk about, you were telling me the other day that you played football, AFL football we're talking, by the way, because we're on the World Wide Web here. We're international.
Yeah, Aussie rules.
Aussie rules, possibly the greatest game on earth.
Certainly to play, if not to watch.
Yes, people haven't quite worked out how to watch it, but definitely you have to be very skilled and very athletic to play that game properly.
Well, you can also not be very skilled or not athletic like me and have a lot of fun with it as well. So
Exactly.
There's
So
a spot on the field for every body shape and size.
Rouser was telling me an interesting story because where we're located here, beautiful surf coast, Bells Beach, there is nothing between us and Antarctica. So you were telling me an interesting story about playing football down at Port Campbell.
Oh, football at Port Campbell. Well, probably two of the most interesting radical things. There's a place just out of Port Campbell called Princetown, and one day there the weather was inclement, like the foam coming up the cliffs, blowing up over the cliffs from the Southern Ocean were like the size of footballs, just foam balls blowing straight down the main street at Port Campbell past the pub, and all the fishermen are in there going, "Oh," I said, "You guys are playing footy?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, we are." So we went out to Princetown. It was just pelting with rain. You couldn't barely see the other end of the ground. I'm not joking. It was like just this grey mass. So it's the only time in my life, and I played a lot of footy. We went into the rooms at half time. The coaches handed out green garbage bags and a pair of scissors, and you had to cut the head out, the shoulders, and put that under your jumper, right? So we ran out there in the last half and played with garbage bags, but our jumpers over the outside, and for real, it's just ridiculous, really. It was a real high standard game.
And they would have been quality Western District woolen jumpers.
Oh yeah, and the opposition, they didn't do any footy training, Princetown. They just tackled cows, potty calves during the week, so that when they hit you, you stayed hit, right? Wasn't about football. It was about hitting the opposition.
You went down like a rubbish bag. So who won, the rubbish bags or the locals?
No, Port Campbell always won, of course. You know, the other connection to footy down there years ago, like waiting for the tide change. Out at massacres, you know, we used to stand on top of the cliffs there, and if you missed a kick, and we play kick to kick.
Ooh.
You know, Lynchy used to do it. You know, he used to kick the footy around. But if you missed, your ball went down into the ocean and into those
to the
pinnacle
keyhole
caves. Oh, they'd kill you. Horrible.
Yelch, yes, that's a very infamous surfing spot there.
Oh yeah.
Known as massacres or boneyards.
Yeah. For very good reason.
For multiple reasons, and of course,
Our sound guy wants you to keep it a bit quiet, I think. Is that what you're saying? It's a secret spot.
It's a secret. Well, we haven't said where it is. It's somewhere down there near.
Allegedly.
Well, allegedly.
But it's interesting down there. You go surfing and and you meet people, and then you play footy down there and go surfing, and well, the whole attitude changes to those people. You know, you see them in the water and they go, well, didn't I elbow you in the head on the half-back flank, right? No.
That's all right.
So, yeah, it's a really great way of sharing culture in the country.
And what stays on the field, stays on the field. And I know we're trying not to name drop here, but obviously when you say Lynchy, you're talking about the man who changed contemporary surfing, Wayne Lynch, very famous Wayne Lynch, highly regarded in America, more so regarded overseas than in his backyard, I believe.
Yeah, that's because he cooks bad breakfasts. Hey, but an interesting thing, my football sort of love started when I was a real little kid. The guy that lived next door to me used to be Teddy Whitten's driver. So Ted would drive up every Saturday morning in his car, for real, get out, and Jim would jump in and take the driver's seat. And sometimes they'd give us a flick pass and stuff like that. And because they had that connection, I didn't even realise this is what everyone did. But my name was on the door, and I could go right into the club rooms where the boys were sitting muddied up and bloodied and everything. And I just wandered around with little number 3 on my back, and then I used to see Ted just going, what the hell is wrong with you?
Get it up.
You're wearing the number.
Who are you? What do you think you're doing here? Right, so I thought that's the way football was. So you cut down to when I played in Port Campbell, and the boys are like having fags at half time. And when we started to get done one match, I got so disgusted I tore my jumper in half. They just said to me, that's a bit harsh. And I thought, that must have been flashing back to that time.
Yep, the famous...
I thought it was always that serious, right?
Yep, because I do know, because Rousers, we met in the late 80s, and then it turns out Rouser grew up across the road from my mother, and my grandmother and Rouser's mum were actually best friends. And I have been guilty of driving your mother to church.
Yes.
With my nana.
Thank you.
Yes. I didn't go in there.
Someone should pray.
Did she call you Andrew or Blizz? And I've got 2 things to do. We're going to get you to play another song soon, Rouser. But just before that, I better thank and acknowledge the great work of our 2 technical team here in part of Ruff Stuff. We've got Scotty from Juc TV, turning the cameras, and Brendon Powell from the Bell's Brewery mixing crew, mixer extraordinaire, engineer in all sense of the word.
Not just sound either.
No, just not just an engineer, I'll put it that way. But lovely guy, and both pretty good surfers, or at least Brendon is. But another thing, Scotty's laughing now.
Careful, you're outnumbered.
But just on your plastic bag story, sorry.
No, I was just going to say there's three goofy footers in the room.
3 goofy. And there'll be 4th when Graham comes. So he's a goofy footer on the footy field. So I've got some highlights there to show you in a sec. But just on your story about the garbage bags, I had the reverse of that. We were in Canberra once at a black tie function, like a B&S, in a shearing shed, and it was freezing. like we were blowing out smoke. And a friend of mine, Jimmy, used to be known as Evil Jim. He were lining up to get the food, which was one of those Bain Marie roasts, and we all absolutely freezing. And Jimmy looks over at the potatoes, and they're in that silver aluminium foil, and he goes, "Geez, I'm freezing," and we're literally blowing out smoke. He goes, "But those potatoes look warm." So we went and put on aluminium foil underneath our black tie. And within about 5 minutes, we were cooking. We were sweating, but we solved the warm problem anyway.
Just add salt.
Something about Australian innovation anyway, so
Yes.
be it hot or cold. So, Alan, would you like to introduce us to your second song?
Yeah, well, the second one I wrote in Port Campbell, and I was down there. I was making boards part-time. Things were slow, so I got an offer to work on a cray boat, right? And so that was pretty cool. We used to go down 12 Apostles, dropping in pots in close on day shots, but you're up there long before, the sunrise. And it really sort of gave me that feeling, watching the lights on the land, and you look out into the middle of Bass Strait in the middle of winter, and it's pitch black. And then like a little bird comes out of the distance and flies, and the storm's howling, the swell's raging, and you really shouldn't be there. So this is one I called Sailor, because we were like sailing in this boat.
Hello, sailor.
Down the way. Hello, sailor. We were sailing down the
Hello,
way.
sailor.
So this was that flash. Here I am, out on the ocean, seven seas my devotion. Oh, my friends asleep in slumberland, as a silhouette, the morning sunrise. We're gonna sail for the sun, sail for the sun, fly like the wind out on the ocean. The coral will cut you like a knife. Sharks nibble and bite. And a whale glides on effortlessly into the deep blue sea. And we're sailing for the sun. And we're flying like the wind. From out of the storm, a weary seabird approaches, and we conquer the waves. And sweet old harmony is our protection. So we sailed for the sun, sailed fly like the wind into the sunrise. Thank you, very kind.
Beautiful. Those high notes, I'm not sure if it's song 2, but you really hit them beautifully.
I'm nearly awake.
We might do the next episode.
It's all over by 6 p.m.
No, I know. We'll just be getting good as it winds up. No, that was great. Just tell us, for my sake, a little bit about your music career. I've heard a bit about the Juc Jets, and I think I've seen you down once at Bell's doing some pretty good stuff there. But tell us about how you got into music and.
Got into music because I had a lot of spare time. So I was living down here in a farmhouse at the edge of Jan Juc, before Jan Juc was built, at Samo's place, right, where I think Graham Galbraith lives now, where the palm trees are. So we used to do a bit of work, surf, and then we thought, better do something. So we started to play guitar and jamming, and then we used to have these wild parties and jam in the loft. There was a loft up top. And the incredible thing was the lady that actually owned the original farm had a unit backed onto the other half of the house. So the whole of the coast would come there, the place would be rocking. She'd only ever complain when things bounced off the wall because she was deaf. Right, beautiful. And Sweens' old man was in the fire brigade, Joe. So he used to come up because people used to complain, and the fire brigade would come because they say the house is on fire.
Oh, that's how they get him there.
And Joe would sort of go, sounds like you guys are on fire, not the house, right? He goes, play us another song. The bells would come and everything, the fire whistles and the whole thing, right? So we'd have a jam, and so that's how we first got the Jan Juc Jets together. It was just a ramshackle band in a house, and then someone said, you should go and play at the pub. We couldn't play any songs, but we really liked playing music. We were super bad. And so we seen the public, and he thought, why not? These fools, I'll let them play. But I'm not paying you, So he gave us the door. So we booked about a month ahead, and we told everyone on the whole coast, from bloody Portland to God knows where. The joint was wall to wall. We charged $10 a head. And that's the only time in my life I've thought, this is exactly what I want to do. Because, I don't know, I think we made about $600 each in those days, each member. Wow. And I thought that was my first gig. And I went, I like this rock and roll business. It's been downhill ever since.
No. And just what era was this for the historians in the room?
That would have been about 1972.
Ooh, that's
pre-leg ropes.
Yes, and
that's big lacquer.
But they had them.
Yeah, they had the Marshalls.
Ooh,
they probably had that amp
already.
Yeah. And the house, I've heard, was one of the original off-grid. So you can tell us about that.
Oh, well, the off-grid house was just down the road from where we are at Bell's here, and we could actually see a little bit of the ocean from the front window, but we could see the windmill. So we had a house. There was about 5 of us living in it. No electricity, just had little gas lanterns. We had tank water and a dunny. We had to dig a hole and bury. That was pretty interesting. So we used to just wake up and walk down the hills. Half an hour later it'd take you over the fences and go and surf bells and wingy pop in those days. And that's when, that's where we used to just jam, just sit around a shed like this and jam. And anyone that played music would jam. Guys from Queensland jam, Hawaiians jam. Like, it was so loose. I can remember sitting there with Reno Abalera. He's on pots, really good pot player.
Literally, yeah.
Right? Everyone just joined in. It was like that. Really,
yeah, wow.
Everyone got together. And then that led to a band that we put together called Blue Earth, which we were a bunch of rangdang surfers who played a bit of music. We weren't musos that played, surfing. We were the other way around. Everyone was a hardcore surfer. And so the funny thing was we played down here one Christmas time, New Year's Eve. Supported hunters and collectors. There's 10,000 people there. And my mum, Nance.
Wow.
She didn't tell me she was going. She was in the mosh pit on a banana lounge, my mother.
Pre-Meredith.
And the roadie said to me, "Is that your mum?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "She's a friggin' legend, you know." And so that was a highlight for me. And then off that gig, James Rain's manager was there, and he said, "We'll give you an East Coast tour."
Wow.
Supporting.
That's how it was.
Oh,
and
wow.
we said, "Nah, sorry, we're going to be offshore by Wednesday." Knocked it all back. But we've actually put the band back together, and we're going to play a gig in Aireys Inlet on December the 6th, first time in 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Got the plug in too. We'll have to get this edited up before
shameless.
And it's there's a young kid down there got brain cancer.
then. Oh, good.
So there's about 3 or 4 bands going to play for nothing,
Oh, that's good.
and it's during the afternoon, and that's why I'm plugging it.
Yeah.
I should say good cause, yes.
It's not about money, but
Just awareness, yeah.
we're going to do it
Where's the gig at?
at the Aireys pub.
Oh, the pub, yes, very good venue. Out the back or in the inside?
In the outside part, in the beer garden.
I know
where
it
they have
well.
the stage right down. They used to have these parties before Stato had the land here at the Rock, what was called the Rock, where the Rock crew lived. And if you wanted to go and surf the Rock, you better be friends with the Rock crew. Or you just got told to nicely F off.
Yes.
You didn't even beg. I didn't go out
It's
there.
not like that nowadays, I'll tell you that. I paddled out there the other day. I didn't recognise anybody. And I was very, a
Hey, I'm
flashback
like
to
that
the
all
80s.
the time, Blizz.
But I remember being in the early 80s, paddling out at Bird Rock, and
Oh, yeah, it
you
was
had
a
to
real-
sit and wait your turn, and it was only because of my association with Fipsy, other
they'd all
people,
seen
but
the
it was
movie,
like you
that
had to
Rock crew,
wait, and
know.
you got told, and if they said go in, you went in.
See the mentality. Everyone in Australia had started serving, blah, blah, blah. But we used to watch, Jack McCoy's movies and stuff, and the Brotherhood and the Bros, and the Black Shorts and all that. And everyone in Hawaii was very protective of surf spots. So the Rock crew really took that on religiously and thought, well, that's what we'll do here, right? Whereas the interesting thing when that was going on, if you went down the coast, there was no one, and you didn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
There was no one, absolutely no one.
So we're going to, we better, you mentioned your gig coming up, and we better throw to our sponsors. So who are you sponsored by here today? Liz?
Adidas
Of course.
and New Balance.
That's good. We like
and,
Adidas. Yes.
I'm really enjoying holding this
Sherrod football, thank you. And I'm sponsored by AIK or AICO Swedish ice hockey team, who are the Collingwood of
They're my
Sweden.
favourite Swedish hockey team,
Of
by the
course,
way.
yes, and Blundstones. And as we throw to a break, we'll then set up for Alan's third song. And this is one we'd like to join you on. We've also got Trav joining us on drums, who's also been helping us with a bit of farming around here. So we'll set up, I think we'll have a break and we'll set up and be ready for the third song. In the meantime, you might tell us about this song, Blue Ocean.
Okay, tell you about this song. I was just sitting there on the balcony one day, and it actually came to me, and it's inspired by those times I'm talking about when there was, the Ocean Road, when you went down in the early days, you got to Apollo Bay, okay, it was bitumen all the way, but after Apollo Bay it was a dirt, windy track to castles. So we used to just rally through there, have little Beetles with mud tyres on it and just go, that was almost as good as going surfing. But you didn't see many people, and the feeling was like, it's still with me. Like I used to go walk along beaches and sort of go, God, I wonder if, I've never seen a footprint. Used to see the odd guy fishing, but never anyone surfing, and you'd paddle out, and there were waves there when you would think, I wonder if that, well, you still see it when you go somewhere. Is that surfable, So, but it was always shared with a friend, but the thing is, we didn't drive down together. I used to go on my own, take a few boards, and a dog. The other people that'd end up there would be on their own with the dog, and you didn't go with a carload of friends back then. You sort of went on your own and minding your own beeswax and didn't tell anybody anything. And then 10 years later, they punched you in the arm at the pub and said, "You never told me." You know, I go, "But I wouldn't have snobbed you. I just didn't tell you." It was like that. So this song sort of is about that vibe. My Blue Ocean. Rode empty waves on Cylinder Beach. We're tucked inside to get out of reach. It's like time stood still as we danced in waves in the lighthouse. Shone way out to sea, went over the hills, on through the trees, on the great ocean road that led to my fantasy. I had my best friend beside me. We were screaming as we were breathing in the moment. Think I'll stay here for a little while. Think I'll stay here in paradise. You'll stay with me till the end of my days. Just like the wind blows across the water. Let the waves roll on. The wind blows strong and carry me to the ocean. My blue ocean, my blue ocean. Carry my soul. So let the waves roll on. Wind blows strong. Carry my soul back to the ocean. It's like time stood still as we danced in waves. At my best friend beside me. Rode empty waves on Cylinder Beach.
No one left to applaud because they're all in the band, but well done, Alan. Is there anyone else you'd like to thank for your musical career to date, including your sponsors?
Mark Skelton.
Mark Skelton.
He drove me crazy. He co-writes nearly everything I touch, and everything he touches I co-write, and we have had many lovely little spats, but it's all worth it. Another left-hander. Another goofy foot.
Another goofy footer. That might be the
And
theme
actually,
of the show.
Skelly's old man was the president of Torquay Football Club.
Apart from that, he was a good bloke.
Yeah, I'm glad. Skelly never played footy. Anglesey is always fine.
I like Torquay. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, thank you. We'll welcome him in.
You can smell the love.
You've kicked off our show well. Thank you so much for your time and all your contributions, and we'll see you at the 6th at Aries.
At the 6th at Aries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Oh, you've got to wait for your introduction. Back out we go. This is just some theme music. Just waiting for the first of the valley. Yeah. Okay, yes. So welcome back. Here we are now for the footy part of the section, for the show. Thanks, Alan. That was pretty good. And you mentioned you had an uncle who might have played some footy.
Yes, well, I believe we have a guest on that's played for the mighty Fitzroy, now
Fitzroy.
known as the Brisbane Bears. Or what are they known as now?
And they're Brisbane Lions.
Brisbane
They merged
Lions.
with the
They
Brisbane
were the Bears there for a while. Yes, my great uncle played one game for Fitzroy.
Well, thank you. And his name was?
Kevin Blizzard.
Another Blizzard. And we
Yeah,
might have a
another
Blizzard guest who's a
and
historian on.
He
Sure.
decided he wanted to become a butcher.
Butcher Blizzard.
So he played one game and then chose a career.
Well, speaking of butchers, the next guest who I'd like to introduce is a man who played 37 games for Fitzroy and famously played in the last ever Fitzroy Premiership, being the Reserves Premiership in 1989. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for Mr. Graham Osborne. Here he is. Big round of applause, I said. And he's also sponsored by Blizzard's Adidas sponsor. If you grab that microphone there, Graham, and what have you got there on your shoulder?
The three stripes.
That is a premiership jumper,
Oh, look at
isn't it?
that. That's a genuine
I
Fitzroy.
can't guarantee it's a premiership one, but
Oh, was it
could
the last
be.
jumper you played in?
Well,
Might have been. Anyway, but it's got the 19 on the back.
Then that's mine.
And if you'd let me acquire it for the rest of the show, I'll be honoured to put it up on the somewhat less glorious board we've got back here. But whilst we do that, we'll put it up here on the piano. Put that in shot there behind. Actually,
I'll
put
just
it-
grab my Melbourne bitter,
There we go.
but sometimes I do prefer a
Sharks.
Bells
lager.
Beach Sharks draft.
And while speaking of the Sharks, we'd like to introduce our second guest, who's also looking at the first race at Cox Plate, Mr. Luke Vassallo. 88 games for Essendon. Twos. Here he is. Thank you. Grab a seat here, Luke, and grab your mic. And so part of the footy show theme, we'd like to, there's a lot of good footballers here on the Surf Coast, and also there's something about the local footy down here as well. So maybe we'll just start with you, Graham. Tell us how you got involved in football and your journey through Bulleen into the Mighty Lions there.
Well, I actually don't remember how you get involved in football. I think you just you live in Victoria. You just play football. So
Very good point.
the local club for myself was Bulleen Templestowe, and I think my little brother and I both started together in the under-10s, probably 8 or 9 years old, and we were basketballers, we were footballers, and to a far lesser extent, cricketers.
And can I interject?
Absolutely.
Back in those days, there was a catchment, wasn't there? And
Yeah,
Fitzroy
absolutely.
would have been in that. Players were in a catchment, and that's what club you first went to?
That's right. So as opposed to today, where just the draft determines where you end up, we would have known from day dot if we were going to play league football where it was going to be, and Bulleen Templestowe, Doncaster, our whole area was Fitzroy. So.
And I, in terms of would have known, I understand, although you spent most of your life in the back line or the wing when you played for Fitzroy, at Bulleen Temp, there is still a club record there for the most goals there in one of the leagues. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I can. Well, I certainly didn't take the traditional paths to league football. I became an apprentice chef at about 16. And,
The butcher theme continues.
Well, yeah, that's right. And really, football and working in hospitality don't go hand in hand. So footy for me, even at that young age, started to take a bit of a back seat. Obviously work was first. So I used to work in I remember a restaurant in St Kilda Road in South Melbourne, and around near Albert Park Lake, which happened to be where I ended up with Fitzroy, either at the Junction Oval or the South Melbourne ground. But I was very familiar with those grounds because during my split shift, I'd go down to the grounds and grab a footy and just train on my own. And training really consisted of just kicking goals. And
You brilliantly avoided answering the question then. So what's this lead record I hear about? Because we've got a goal kicking forward here who's pretty happy with his 19, but I think you go one better than that.
Yeah, well, I wasn't really a forward, but because I was so unfit at that stage, they sort of parked me down at either full forward or centre half forward, and I kicked 119 in my one season in the under-19s, and one of those games was 22 goals.
22 goals.
22 goals. Mm.
You must have not had a very good backman on you, or were you on a quality opposition and just dominated?
Oh, I'm sure he was a good player. I don't really remember, but
there might have been about 6 of them.
To be fair, Graham, he probably wasn't that good. That's not not taking anything away from you.
No, I understand. No, look, I couldn't tell you, Luke. I could sort of make up a story. I'm sure you're going to come up with a few.
No.
Two ducks swimming backwards.
Two ducks swimming backwards. Well, I'd be pretty happy with 9 goals. I think I've kicked 3 as my most as a backman who's spent his life trying to go forward. And just brings in Luke over here and your journey into football. Could you just take us through that and maybe talk about that 19 you kicked? Where was that?
Sure. Good to be here. Thanks, Dave, Blizz, Graham. Look, my journey into football started quite late. I didn't play my first game until I was about 16. I did gymnastics as a kid, believe it or not.
Really? And, can we have some photos of that, please?
Yes, there was some interesting manoeuvres.
Scotty will interpose them.
Let's say that. Which I try to attempt doing these days and always ends badly. But, I am renowned for doing the old handspring or cartwheel across the dance floor.
Actually, and that's my first prop. I actually have that planned. There is some footage we have on our Darwin hat. If you just remove your hat, you might just tell us what happened in the Cox plate just then, or the first card on the agenda.
Well, I can tell you that...
there we go. This is why we've got it. I'll take your mic and I'll set up the story. So we've just been to Darwin recently because we'll jump in time. Luke is the inaugural coach of the Sharks Masters Football Club we set up down here, but also is the goal-kicking forward of the Vic Country over 50s. Yeah, there's his glasses.
Straight in the eye.
So this is a character who took apart the dance floor after one of the nights out there. Anyway, we might try and interpose some of that footage as we continue on the interview. So actually, and this is actually back to the Vassallo of the youth, because I remember playing on a bloke like this
rocking
a couple of years into your career.
Did you have a mullet, Luke?
I did, and I'm happy to share a photo. We can do that later, but it's quite unbelievable. The hair looks quite similar, believe it or not. And
I believe it.
No, yeah,
I'm a believer.
Anyway, the good old days. But yeah, look, it started in gymnastics, and for whatever reason, I think maybe I hit puberty or a little bit later, and I thought, need to go and get a little bit of anger out, and football became a thing. And yeah, at St Bernard's, it was it was always very sporty and wanting to get involved in different sports, and yeah, I obviously turned my hand to football, and then the journey went on from there. So, which we've met at on the ground a couple of times, Dave.
Yes, I do. I think I should put one of those stories forward. So back to the backman, I managed to keep, when he came down and played in our lowly division against the mighty Monash Whites, he was a St Bernard star at that stage and had finished his career at Essendon and Fitzroy. But he was known as a 10-goal full forward, and I did manage to get in the best for keeping him to 3, but they were 3 pretty good goals he got on me. But a few weeks later, he was trying to kick his 100th goal out at Monash, and we were worried about him again, and I didn't know what to do, and I got saved a lesson because, as it turned out, Luke went for one of those leads, and like this chair here, he went for a low ball and put his knee through his teeth and put his top lip through the rest of his teeth and had to go off to hospital. So we thought, that's the end of Vassallo. Little did we know, though, he wanted the 100 goals, so he came back at 3/4 time from the Monash Medical Centre with his lip stitched up. And
Wow.
Yeah, so yep, that's about right, Dave. It was pretty interesting. Look, to be fair, it was a clean cut, Blizz. Wasn't too bad.
Okay.
It certainly went straight through the teeth, went through the lip, and fair to say, there's a bit of blood. So anyway, they jabbed me and stitched me up, and I couldn't wait to come back.
Come back on the just
stand
in
next
time.
to O'Brien.
Bit of cortisone.
It was good.
And we recently had an encounter at North Force, and we might interpose a bit of a footage, and you probably even can recall it. You can take us through the footage. It starts with a bloke called Jared Hills down in the back line, and tell us about the North Force game too.
So that was a fantastic thing that, you put a lot of time and effort into, and we were very lucky to secure Kevin Cheedy as the ambassador for that particular game. And he came up, which made it a bit easier to attract a few different players, and he actually had a connection also at the North Force, which is, the Defence Force. And, it was an exhibition match that we put together. And I thought it was absolutely tremendous where, we had obviously Australian, you had Indigenous, we had US Marines, all as a bit of a combination to come together and play Australian rules footy for the first time. It was a pretty special moment.
And we must be very thankful to the military component, the North Force, both for their service, and Lieutenant Colonel Matt Cooper, who actually played pretty well as well, unfortunately for us at Vic Country. But anyway, one of the things he said to us in a briefing is that Australian rules football as a participation or a community game is actually extremely important to the Army as a bridge building exercise, not only with the Indigenous but with Americans and other communities. And that's one of the best things about the game, although you can play at perhaps the level that Graham and you played, which is great and great to watch. There's also a lot of fun to be had at the community level, which is what we're on about with Masters footy and local footy. So, we might just turn back to Graham. Thank you again for the double sponsorship over here with Adidas.
Thank you.
We're very grateful for that.
Thank you, Adidas.
But what I'd like to do, you were in Fitzroy in a pretty memorable era, and for those who ever go on YouTube, I urge you to go on any of the games. You had the final series in the 80s. Could you tell us about that era? You actually started your career in a final, and some of the players you had, Strooper and Sidebottom and Mickey Conlon and all these champions, and you had the Perts and Roos down back. Why don't you take us through that era, particularly your first game in a final?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to play with some great Fitzroy footballers, and my first captain was the Flea Wilson, Gary Wilson, Bernie Quinlan, a Brownlow medalist. Gary Sidebottom was at centre half forward, a real enforcer of the game. Doug Barwick had just arrived from Tassie, not long after Alistair Lynch. Johnny Blakey, who probably played 350 games. So some great players from a great area. And for Fitzroy, my first year, we were lucky enough to play finals. I played the entire season as a reserves footballer. Later in the season, started to get picked as an emergency, and we made the elimination final in '84, and I was lucky enough to get selected in that game against Collingwood. Played in front of 80,000 people at the MCG.
How's that for a debut?
Fantastic, and played on a young fella, Darren Mullane, who was probably playing his third game. Also, I was still in the restaurant business at that stage, and Ronnie Andrews, the ex-Essendon hard man, used to deliver our meat, and he turned up with a delivery on the Thursday night. I couldn't tell him that I was in, but I remember parking the car at the MCG members' car park, and the first bloke that I saw was Ronnie. When he got out of the car, and I had to tell him I was in then.
What did he say?
I don't remember. Long time ago.
And how did Darren Mullane give you? What sort of reception did you get from him on the ground?
Well, I think it might have been his game 3. So we were both sort of starting out with our careers, and I think we probably broke even. Neither of us were probably in the best players, but.
It was a great era for footy, though. Everyone was hard at the footy, and we'll have some footage of that '89 grand final up shortly. But as you went through, it seemed to be, unfortunately for Fitzroy, there was a talk of the mergers through there, and you had a number of players start to leave as they were poached by other clubs. It seemed to be, although you had a great set of players come through the club in that era, you just unfortunately didn't always have them on the park at the same time, including yourself. You had a pretty bad injury the next year, didn't you? Medial ligament or something.
Yeah, well, 85, I think I played probably 10 games. 86 was the year that we played finals again. I played probably the first 8 games, and then did a medial ligament, and that was me for the rest of the year. But we had a good run through the finals. I think we knocked off Essendon by a point or two, and the Sydney Swans by a point or two, and then we came up against the eventual premiers Hawthorn and beat us out at Waverley.
And Essendon had also won a couple of flag zone in the years before that, in the start of the Sheedy era. Yeah. So then we come to this '89 grand final, which for those who don't know, as Blizz might know, something happened in the senior game, the '89 grand final.
Yes, well, it's kind of touted as the greatest final ever. Gary Ablett senior, 9 goals and a losing side, and really hard fought match. A lot of what do we have? Punctured lungs, broken ribs, all at the start.
It's in the and for Geelong it was a pretty they had the opportunity to take away 3 flags for the day: the under-19s, the reserves, and the seniors. And unfortunately, and they'd also had the pyramid era, which had been pretty tough on the town for anyone who had lost money in pyramid, and it was a fair few.
I lost my job.
My grandma lost her savings too. So anyway, they were all set to at least win one of them, and comes to the reserves grand final. And I urge anyone who wants to see a great game of football, and probably I reckon the golden era of football in terms of just the quality of the game. The Geelong boys are winning quite well into the third quarter, and I might hand over to Graham. So take us through what you guys were thinking at this point, because it turns out to be the last flag Fitzroy win, because you do come back and win without giving the surprise away. But just take us through about halfway through the game. You must be 5 or 6 goals down. Can you remember what the boys were thinking?
I don't know. I do remember though. Yeah, we were not quite out of it, but we were pretty close to being out of the game, and a couple of our guys, Dean Lupson and Darren Wielden, and another bloke, Robbie Bowles, and all went nuts. You know, there was a little bit of violence out on the ground, and
there's one incident. If I could do Doc Wielden, he seems to go up for a mark, and he can't quite mark the ball. He decides to give up on the ball, but he manages to punch both of the players he's going up against in the goal square as he's fighting for the ball. But what happened is late in the third quarter, if we could now run the footage, Scotty.
That's Dean Lupson. He was one of the instigators of some of the violence, and there's Robbie Bolson, who was also one of the instigators. But
in terms of the turnaround, watch this. So there's number 19.
Oh, Books!
Oh, gee whiz.
Sells the candy
And on the
and a
left.
big bomb.
Natural left, Graham.
Bang.
Wow.
yeah, natural left.
What are we talking, 60 metres?
That is one of the longest MCG goals. And look at the lack of celebration, because you're a few goals down. You're very casual there, Graham.
Oh, I would have said a little bit more
24.
swagger than casual. Just a little bit of look at me there.
So that takes us
on the
into
left, 60
Jeezel.
out to the G. If you
Yeah, I
don't
think
mind.
that was just before three-quarter time, and that got us, maybe gave us a bit of a sniff, I think.
It did. So
Actually, the siren went as the ball crossed the
There you
line.
go, very close to three-quarter time.
Oh, so you changed your game, Graham.
Well,
Fair to say.
he's very
some
humble.
Would, some
but
would say that.
Game
Luke.
changer.
he did manage to get second best on ground, I think, for the day, as the record shows. So what I'd like to now show is one of the most important incidents of the last quarter. Oh, here we go.
No forewarning, Dave. I've got no idea what's going to go on here.
So there you are chasing here. Now watch this bump. It's a bump balk. There we go. Bang.
Bang.
There we go. Bump balk. Get on the
Again,
left foot.
on the left boot.
Look at him.
Straight to the target.
Yeah, Llewellyn.
There we go.
They said it was Mark Scott on the commentary, but that was a guy
Here's
called
Mark
Llewellyn.
Llewellyn.
Yeah. So, Graham, so that then started to turn around and you could keep watching. Mickey Conlon plays well. You've got Strooper. Tell us about who else.
Dave, you
It's all
got
on the
me, mate.
tape.
You got just watch the video.
I've watched it more times than
Watch
you
the
have,
video.
probably.
You have, clearly you have.
Yeah, so...
Well, look, we had a few players, a few legends of Fitzroy playing in their last game. So Ross Thornton, Leon Harris, Michael Conlon.
Graham Osborne.
I
You're
played
too
in the
humble
last
to
game. I
say.
think Mark Scott was playing in his last game. Johnny Ironmonger was playing in his last game. So we had some good experience, and we had some good up and coming kids coming through as well. And
You got to belt out the song at the MCG on grand final
yeah,
day. which is
absolutely.
Pretty good effort.
And it was one of the greatest senior grand finals, but I think we were gone by half time. It appeared that the game was really over at half time, so we left and
Yeah.
big comeback
Graham?
by the Cats.
Did any up and coming players from that side go on and play senior Fitzroy football in the coming years
Well,
that you can remember?
yeah. Well, Doc Wheeldon had
Okay.
had a reasonable career. Probably could have been longer, but he's a much loved Fitzroy person.
Dougie Barwick.
I don't think Doug was
Might
playing.
have been that game, but
No, he wasn't. But yeah, he had a good career. Jason Baldwin, I think, played a fair bit of senior football.
Yeah, well, Jace Ball played with me at Richmond.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
great bloke.
and you had a time with
I
Fitzroy
think Carl,
too, didn't you?
Carl Delina, who might be, where's he the CEO these days? Carl Delina,
Not sure.
CEO of one of the.
Is that
club-
the Berliner Commodore named after Carl Berliner?
Delina.
Oh, Berliner.
Beep Beep Belina.
Okay.
Speaking of Beep Beep, you had a guy called Bob Beecroft, and back in the late 70s, early 80s, I had what they call a bowl haircut. And mine was pretty bad if you see some old photos, but it was nothing on Bob Beecroft's. And now that was on the footy cards. I didn't know Bob personally. I'm not sure if it was
He's a bit before my time.
He was a bit before your time too, but if you remember him on the footy cards, he had a terrific bowl. And we'll just ask you now about life post Fitzroy, because that was your last game. Where did you go to then?
I had a couple of years or 3 years in Tassie. I had 2 years at Sandy Bay,
Yes.
which was a great time. And then I thought I'd retired, but North Hobart decided to recruit me for one season. So finished my footy in Tassie.
And we have tried for many years to get you down to the Masters, but at this stage you've so far resisting the temptation.
Well, so
money's
far
not
resisting.
right.
I am 62, going on 63, Dave. So
Yes.
probably not a good time to make a comeback.
What about coaching? Any aspirations?
Just
any aspirations?
It was never something that I wanted to do. I got involved at Torquay with some junior teams and a bit of community service, Luke. But
What about the Sharks? What about the
what
mighty
about the Sharks? Isn't that aren't
Well,
you the coach?
I'm just simply asking an open question
Yes.
to understand if you've got. Look, well, you're saying you're 62 and you can't play. That's okay,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
can still get around. And that Blizz, Dave.
Yes,
You know the
yeah.
Sharks has been an unbelievable thing for all of us blokes
Incredible.
around town.
Yeah.
The motto I have for Masters footy is you'll only be worse next year. So
Yeah,
you might as well give it a go. And
Yep.
with that, we'll probably wind up the show. So, Brendan, if you're ready for the theme music one more time, we'll...
Just before we go, if
we'll
you
just
don't mind,
got some thank yous here.
I've just got a little bit of it's sort of a thank you, and I think it'll be a lot of a thank you from you and Dave. I had to bring it home for you. The mighty 14 in the Vic Country.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for Darwin. Thanks for the day.
So thanks, Vic Country. And yes, I'm very glad to get that back.
Yes,
I
we
was
love the
missing it on
Vic
wall.
Country.
So thank you, linesmen. Thank you, Bulls boys and Bulls
And
girls.
casting
and thanks
crew
very much, Graham.
staying
Thanks,
at the
Alan.
Siebel
Thanks, Luke.
Townhouse tonight.
You can go back to the Cox Plate, and it's episode 1 in the can for Rough Stuff. Oh, hit the volume, Brendan. Now we dance.
Minding my business. said